My purpose in life is to leave my dent in the universe in absolutely everything I do, as well as to inspire and help others do the same. For someone to leave their dent in my life is a privilege. For me to leave my dent in someone else's life is an honor. But to inspire and help others leave their own dent in the universe is an indescribable feeling. I plan on doing this through this podcast by celebrating my guests and inspiring my listeners, all while leaving my own dent in the universe and helping others do the same. My name is Fer Andrade, and this is Denting. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Denting with Fer. Today I have a very special guest, someone that I always viewed as a mentor, and slowly but surely I've gotten to know a bit more. Cam Kondo, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me here. How are you doing?
Good. I'm doing well. I'm very excited for this conversation. I met you one of the first weeks of school. You were the GSI, basically. Of one of my classes, and I'm very excited to get to know your story a bit more from what I knew freshman year. So for those that may or may not know you, would you like to introduce yourself?
So I was a peer advisor for the UGBA 199 class that do you prefer for?
Fair. Fernando, whatever.
Fair, okay. That he was in, and so I'm Cam Kondo. I'm a senior on the women's softball team. I am a business administration major, so go Haas, but also not all of us are Haas holes. So yes, that's me. I grew up, born and raised in the Bay Area. I have two sisters, so family is super important to me, and that's kind of me. And I play softball, and that's pretty much it. Yeah,
softball, and year-wise, you're graduating.
Yes.
So that's coming up pretty soon.
Yep.
And even though you're graduating, or while you're graduating, I think it's a good time to take a look back at your Cal career. We gave a speech the other night in a leadership showcase where we talked about our whole journey. Cameron Rogers was also there. She's been here. She was here yesterday, so shout out Cameron. But do you want to take us back to your recruiting process in high school and just your mentality coming into collegiate softball?
Absolutely. So the recruiting process for softball was crazy ever since the rule change, which I'm sure it was for soccer. But I remember in my recruiting process, there was girls that were committing as early as 8th grade, which is just insane, making a decision about college at 13 years old when you have no idea what you want. So I always knew, because my parents, they always wanted me to look at academics first. So I kind of waited. I was later in the process. So I was looking more East Coast, academic schools and the Ivy League and things like that. And Cal really came into the picture last minute. I was promised I was going to commit somewhere on the East Coast, go out there, maybe have softball not be at the forefront of my experience and have it more be of an academic experience. And then Cal came into the picture. I think it was literally maybe a few days before I was going to commit to a different school. And I loved it. And there was something about being able to play in the Pac-12 as well as coming to a school like Berkeley, which honestly I grew up 45 minutes away from here, but I had no idea what Berkeley was. Okay. And so that was a really exciting process for me. And I think for me growing up, it was always just if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it well. And so softball really was my thing in high school. I spent every weekend, pretty much every night, doing some sort of practice, which I'm sure so many Cal athletes do to become the best you can be before coming here. And so that was kind of my recruiting process. I just remember it being stressful because I didn't know if I always battled between, do I want to play at the highest level or go somewhere that's more academic where softball maybe wouldn't be as great. And then Cal came in the picture and it seemed like it was the perfect mix of the two.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly.
In high school, obviously many of us have to sacrifice to get to where we are right now here in Berkeley. How did you balance out school, because your academics are amazing, so school, softball, and your social life, because it's not like you're stuck into those two. So how do you balance that?
Right. So in high school, I really was nothing else other than a softball player and a student. I did not really do much. I did the basic stuff of prom, dances and things like that when I had the opportunity to, but really, other than that, like, my best friends were on my softball team. So, like, we would literally spend, like, probably 8 hours of a weekend together just practicing softball. On Saturdays, we would play. On Sundays, we'd have practice. And then throughout the week, that's who I would hang out with after school, because we would have infield practice, outfield practice, hitting, all that type of stuff. And so I think that was a sacrifice I kind of made. I have no regrets, because I still talk to those people still today. Like, they're my best friends. But I think I forgot where I was going with this point, but with the balance there is, it was just like this is where I was going. So I watched a lot of movies as a kid.
Okay.
And so High School Musical, She's the Man, all those type ones definitely did not help me in what I thought my high school experience was going to be like. So coming to college, I definitely came in with the mentality of wanting to make up for lost time in terms of social stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that explains a big change, because I didn't see you as just, stuck in those two. I see you balancing out those three things quite well. When you do get to Cal, what were your expectations in all sorts of things? You already mentioned your social. What about softball and then school?
Yeah, totally. So I initially came to Cal, I'll start with academics, wanting to be a doctor.
Okay.
I really wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. But I was in chemistry and math for that first 2 weeks of school, and I was also taking Spanish at the time too, and I was like, get me out of these classes. And so I dropped all of them. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was looking into the public health major as well as business. It turns out that I kind of just went business full send, and it worked out in my favor, so I'm very happy to have had that. But academically, I definitely had goals here to be, to take advantage of my opportunities at Berkeley and just be a part of it being the #1 public university in the world. And then athletically, obviously with Cal, I wanted to compete for national champions or championships. I think in 2002, Cal women's softball won the first national championship for women's sports here at Berkeley.
Okay.
And so that was something that I was definitely drawn to. I remember sitting in my coach's office, seeing the trophy in her office, and that's all I wanted. And I was going to do literally whatever it took for me to get there. And so I thought I was going to be Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, compete for those types of things, All-American, all those kind of things you see as a high schooler, on TV, wow, I want to play like her. That's who I wanted to be. So
that's what you wanted to be, and like you said, school worked out for you, social life worked out for you, and softball also worked out for you, at least at the end, but it was a long process. So what was the reality coming in freshman year?
I think the biggest thing that I realized was false expectations in everything. I thought I was going to rush a sorority. Obviously didn't do that. Academically, I was I'm going to have a 4.0. I didn't have to try very hard in high school, but it's Berkeley, you know?
It is Berkeley.
And then athletically, I think it just was a really wide awakening for me, because I came from a travel ball program where we loved each other, where we, it was amazing. We were all on the same page all the time. And granted, we also grew up together. So I think I kind of expected that to be the situation here at Berkeley, but it wasn't, which was fine. I think I learned a lot from learning with people with very different backgrounds and personalities, but I also think that contributed to why I was oh my gosh, this Cal softball isn't how I thought it was going to be. I'm not playing as good as I thought I was going to be. I don't know what to do. And so I think that definitely contributed to the overall, just false expectations all around. And I think academically and socially, it was just easier to find outlets that way, whereas softball, the only thing I could have kept doing is just showing up to practice. And even doing that, it just never worked. And so, it got to a point where it was really hard to continue to show up and try and put in effort for something that I knew wasn't going to really work out in my favor.
So why did you?
I honestly don't know, to be honest with you. I think the past 3-4 years have really flown by. And I talked about this the other day, but I had so many conversations with my parents about, should I quit? Should I transfer? Should I just be done? Should I just go to school here? And I think the biggest thing that kept me going was that's never what I pictured for myself.
Yeah.
I really, set in stone. I just took my grad pictures the other day with the student athlete stole, and that was the picture I just kept on seeing. When I thought about my time being done here at Berkeley, is just a image of myself having the stole with a picture in front of the Sather Gate, and that, I guess, in a very superficial way, that's kind of what kept me going, is just like making it to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just having that picture and vision in mind to keep going. And I even remember you were a junior, I was a freshman, and we were talking and you're like, well, I might graduate early. And I'm like, what? Like, I remember from the beginning you wanted to leave or start something new, but you kept going. Well, before I even get into the pandemic, why was it the case for 3 years? I know you struggled with softball. You mentioned it the other night. Do you want to dive in a bit into that?
Yeah, so I play softball. Everybody knows that you're supposed to be able to throw, catch, hit, those type of things. And for some reason, when I woke up one morning, 13, I remember exactly where I was. I was down in Hemet, California, playing a softball tournament at a random field in the middle of nowhere. And I woke up one day and I could not throw the ball. Like, I grew up throwing right-handed, right? So brush my teeth right-handed, do everything right-handed, I write right-handed, and I just couldn't throw the ball anymore. Like, I literally could not throw it like 10 feet. And so that was like my struggle kind of going through high school, is like just taking reps and reps and reps of being like, okay, like, let's figure out how to throw right-handed. Let's figure out a different way to throw. Let's try a different style. Let's try something different like that. And so pretty much it got to a point where it became like I literally could not play defense. I was really good at hitting, I'm not going to lie. I was tooting my own horn there, but that was what I got recruited for. And so defense was always just kind of like, ugh, I have to play defense, ugh, like whatever. And so when I got to Berkeley, my coach actually told me that you will never play defense for Cal. You will never do this. Like, I literally can't put you on the field anywhere. And so, like, you either have to become a really good hitter or we're going to have to figure something out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know your coach told you that,
Yeah.
so that's tough.
No, there was a good, like, 2 weeks. We didn't stick to it because I think we got caught up through the semester, but my freshman year, I wasn't allowed to practice with the team. I had to go work on throwing with one of my other teammates who was injured, so she wasn't practicing either. But that's what I was doing for that entire practice period, was working on my throw. Instead of practicing with the team. So that it felt isolating for sure, but it all works out.
It all works out. So how did it work out? What was the solution for that? How do you get past an obstacle like that in your way? Do you avoid it, ignore it, go through it, go over it? What happens there?
Yeah, so I made the decision my freshman year. I bought a like $30 glove from Sports Authority. It was for a left-handed thrower. And I was like, let's just, you know what, like, let's just see if this works. Let's just, like, try it. And so I actually found that it was pretty natural for me. And I still could not explain to you why that is, because usually when you flip to your non-dominant hand, like, you can't do it. Like, you know, like, it's just, like, it doesn't make sense in your brain. But for some reason it did. And that's when I felt like there was an opportunity there, or a chance. And maybe that's what kept me going, is, like, just always the opportunity for a chance. Like, maybe I can, maybe I will, and like kind of seeing like what is possible there. So I decided to switch completely to left-handed, which was a really hard experience. There was a lot of tears, a lot of questioning of what I was doing was right through that process. But I think like the moral of the story is, as cheesy as it is, when things don't go right, go left. And I think that's kind of like how I've encountered challenge throughout my time at Berkeley, is just like, when something doesn't work out, it's fine. Just go the other way and find a way to make it productive for you. If that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like I've said this with many other athletes, but again, this all applies to life, because if it doesn't work one way, it doesn't mean give up.
Right.
And especially for you, you're throwing right-handed and your right hand just does not function.
Yeah.
In any other sport, it's like, all right, then I'm not good enough. But that was not an option for you, and that's the best part of the whole thing. That's a wild change to make at the collegiate level, to just, you taught yourself how to throw, basically, because you didn't use your left hand at all, right?
Right, like I never, like it was pretty much just like, you know what, like I feel like it's easier for me to dive into something new and become something new than keep using my right hand, which I know will never give me a chance.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's what I really wanted to do, is just give myself a chance of just, like, a maybe tomorrow I'll learn maybe tomorrow I'll wake up and be the best left-handed thrower on our team. Who knows? Something like that. And I think just coming around to my senior year and just having like very little time left in my Cal uniform, and then eventually going on to play next year, is I'm excited by the opportunities that I've had and excited by the fact that I decided to make that choice, because I don't know if I would have finished my 4 years here had I stayed right-handed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that's definitely the best part of it, because you always chase the possibility.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't give up because there was a possibility. So it's like you said, having that picture, having that vision, having that possibility in mind to keep chasing after that. And that's what I admire the most about that story, which I only learned about like a week or two ago, and that's incredible. And it sounds nice right now. It's like, yeah, I taught myself how to throw with my other hand. It all worked out. 4 years, great. But what was the reality? What did you have to go through on a daily basis to be able to throw with your left hand?
Yeah, I think I bruised my right hand a lot,
Okay.
relearning how to catch and all the footwork and kind of just like literally looking at people doing something and flipping that in my brain. And I've always, like, I have so much more respect for left-handed people now, because pretty much everybody in sport is right-handed. In a lot of baseball, softball, there's like 85% of the team is right-handed, hits right-handed, and throws right-handed. And so like I think that was like a really hard part, was taking a step back and being okay with not being good at it yet. And that was the thing, is like I wanted to skip over all the hard parts to be where I am today and be able to be functional in this left-handed kind of way. And I think that was the hardest part, was being okay with showing up and knowing that I was not going to play defensively that day, and knowing that I wasn't going to be good enough that day. But it just like all of those little things added up, and I told you there was so many tears, so much extra work put in those moments of being left-handed, or switching over to left-handed, where I had to kind of just buckle down and just be like, you know what, it's okay, like we're still going to be good at hitting, like that's still what we're focused on, but this is a project that I want to work on to give myself a chance.
Yeah.
So.
You mentioned hitting and throwing, were you still hitting right-handed?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
So I'm still a right-handed hitter. That I don't think I ever would be able to change. That it is so hard to completely switch that, so I have so much respect for switch hitters and things like that.
Yeah.
So
And throughout this whole process, you mentioned it, you described it, how all the tears involved, the footwork, the bruises, everything, and how hard it truly was, because like I said, it sounds nice. Oh yeah, I switched hands, but the real process is not nice. It's a huge accomplishment. How long did it take you?
So I figured out that I kind of had this skill I think it was actually my sophomore year of high school, because I was like, like I can do it, like it's comfortable. But coaches were always like, I think this was another big thing that I learned, is people were always like, oh, I want to fix you. No, don't go left-handed. Like, I want to fix you. I want to make your right hand better. And that even continued up until I got here at Cal. And I think, so it's been overall a 3-year process since my freshman year, since I've fully been left-handed or whatever, committed to that. But even throughout my time at Cal, my coaches were always like, I could fix your right hand. I could fix you. I could fix you. I could fix you. And so it really took like probably maybe 10 conversations with them of being like, okay, I'm either just going to be a hitter or I need to switch left-handed. Like, I just don't see a possibility in me becoming right-handed in something that you want on the field for this. And so, in order for me to get through it, I know I look like I'm the worst player on the team right now, and that's okay. And, like, if you don't want me out there on defense when we're showcasing or doing our pregame defense to other teams, that's fine. Like, I'm okay with that. That doesn't hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
But in order for me to get to where I wanted to be, I had to kind of have those conversations with them of being like, okay, let's do this full time. And so pretty much between my freshman and senior year, my freshman year, I actually switched probably 3 or 4 times between right and left-handed. Sophomore year, I switched again, kind of mostly left-handed. And then my junior year, they actually wanted me to pitch right-handed,
Wow.
where I was throwing left-handed because we were having a lot of injuries on our team. And so that was another change too. Was going back to right-handed to pitch underhand while still learning how to throw left-handed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird experience.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You went from not being able to throw, transforming that your sophomore year, junior year, pretty much ready, right?
Yeah.
But then ambidextrous.
Right,
Or,
yeah.
I know the motions are different, throwing overhand and underhand. So were you comfortable with the right hand, underhand?
Yeah, so I was actually a pitcher growing up,
Okay.
right-handed, but once my overhand kind of went, there was pretty much no point in it anymore. So I decided that I wasn't going to pitch anymore, but it was always kind of like just like a skill I had in my back pocket.
Okay.
And so when last year they needed more pitching, that's kind of what happened.
That's great. Yeah, so I think the key lesson from this whole thing is, yes, when things don't go right, go left, but also it's not overnight.
Right.
You struggled with this since you were 13. You showed up to Cal and you faced an obstacle, and for 2-3 years you worked on it, and then it finally worked out.
Yeah.
And that's even a lesson for me because I'm only a sophomore right now, like I'm telling you. And like I mentioned in the speech, I've only played 45 official minutes, which isn't even a full game. So it takes time.
Right.
And it's trusting that whole process. And yeah, I think that's an important takeaway from this whole story. Besides softball in your life, something I really want to focus on is like your overall curriculum, right? Because you were doing everything, and that's what I admired the most. When I saw you doing that, and when HPC was still a thing, and you had office hours and then tutoring at the same time, I was like, yeah, I want to be that. When I grow up, I want to be that, right? But tell me what else you were doing. How did you get into tutoring? Obviously not getting tutored, but tutoring others, as well as the mentorship programs here and leading that way off the softball field.
Yeah, totally. So I think just my advice for freshmen is just something you just said, and I don't want to forget it, is no one cares what you did your freshman year.
Yeah.
What they care about is what you did your sophomore year, how you got better to your junior year, and what you left Cal when you were a senior. And I think that was something that really kind of resonated with me going through my process, and something that I had to learn, and a big reason why I chose to be involved in the way that I did in tutoring and peer advising is I knew for tutoring, I obviously loved it. I did pretty well my freshman year in some courses, and I wanted to be able to share that with other students who are going through the same thing, as well as have that opportunity to kind of grow my mentorship and leadership with people who were relatively the same age as me. And I think that was a big lesson learned there, because I really had to kind of cater myself to other people, and that was something that I had never done before, is having to do that. And so that's kind of what I learned from tutoring, and I really found that I enjoyed mentoring. And so when that opportunity came up with UGBA 199 class, I was like, I have to take this, and I hope I get it. And working with Kazra and Tarek has just been amazing, and finding students like you. And I think that's been the coolest part, is growing those relationships with students that I never would have met.
Yeah.
We would have probably passed through a few times in HPC, probably never would have talked, and things like that. And I think that's probably the coolest opportunity there is. And I think that I found that I really wanted to leave Cal with connections, whether that be for business or friends or things like that, or just grab coffee like when I'm in town. And I knew that that was something that was really important to me, leaving my college experience behind. Yeah.
Yeah. And taking those leadership skills back to the softball field, a theme that I've had with other conversations is when you work on one side of your game, game being life. So if you're improving in school, if you're improving in your social life, it will help your sport in a way. Did you find that to be the case with your process and journey?
Yeah, I think this is also another good analogy, is a coach actually told me when I was growing up, is in softball, there's obviously defense and offense, and they're separated by innings.
Yeah.
And so, for example, if you're having a game and you're going 0 for 3 hitting, then focus on your defense and make a diving catch in the outfield. And I think that theme is kind of like what you're talking about. And I think that was something that was really important for me, is like when softball wasn't working out, I went to these extracurriculars, and I found so much fun in being able to talk to other students and learning from their ways of life. And I think that was something that I brought back to softball, was being okay with struggling, because everybody was struggling, and being okay that maybe my experience wasn't as what I thought it was going to be. And I think that made softball better for me, because I always knew that there was going to be another outlet somewhere. And I think then going to softball, it brought me to focus more on the relationships that I had with my teammates, with underclassmen, with my coaches, in order to be able to really practice that mentorship and conversations, as well as being a mentee from my coaches or from older teammates, and being able to make my experience what I wanted it to. And so I think that was the biggest transition, was focusing more on the relationships in softball rather than maybe softball itself.
Yeah. And with the relationship and the connections that you're talking about, I feel like you quickly realized that you weren't the only one that was struggling, the same way that I've been realizing that. But another thing that makes you unique is you literally wanted to make as many connections as possible. So you want to talk about how you did that and how you put yourself out there to get to know people?
Yeah, so I'm a pretty shy person, I would say. Like, I'm pretty awkward, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, growing up, I was always the most awkward person. And just, like, I felt like in high school, like I kind of talked about it earlier, is I never really went to those parties or went to that type of stuff. I would when, like, I had a free time or whatever, but, like, never really, like, put myself out there in that way, because I was Cameron, the softball player. I was, oh, she's going to Cal. Like, oh, like, whatever, she doesn't have time, she has practice anyway.
Yeah.
So I think coming to Cal, like, I was definitely intimidated by the fact that I didn't really have those experiences in high school. And I really wanted to, I guess, like, dive into that in socially in an aspect. And I would say, like, the biggest way that I do that is, Fur could probably tell you guys, is I'm, like, will be 100% authentically myself 100% of the time. And I found that really works out for me, because I will tell strangers literally random stuff about me, and then it will spark a conversation. And here we are today, sitting here doing this podcast because of that. And I think that's the best part about conversation, is seeing conversation as an art, in terms of getting to know people and just, like, hearing your background and hearing your way of life, because I think that's something that I've really come to enjoy, is just, like, finding the beauty in every single person's background that has got them here. Like, that's so cool, like, that you lived a completely different life than me before Cal, and yet here we are doing this, you know? And I think that's, like, the best way to get to know people, is just, like, being genuinely interested in their story and their why, because you can always learn from someone else, you know?
100%. And I would never say you're a shy person. I don't know where that's coming from. I never met that Cameron.
Fake it till you make it. That's how we got through.
Yeah, no, definitely. I like the way you say the art of conversation. That's something I've realized as well, but through Zoom. Zoom helped me connect with so many people, as well as social media, just, like, being able to be everywhere at once, if that makes sense. So I was in the same room and going to this meeting and that meeting and all over the place, but it's even more incredible to me to think you did all of that when everything was still normal. So that's definitely something that's very, very cool, in that sense. When you talk about those connections, it helps you grow as a person, and I think that's the most important thing. But I think something that's cool is that how do I say this? I don't want to say it reflects in other areas of your life. Maybe it does. Maybe that is the word, that it shows that you're growing as a person. And in a place like Haas, for example, without focusing too much on the business school itself, connections are always important. And they're also important for joining the workforce, to go get a graduate degree, etc. So how has that benefited you going into the future?
Yeah, totally. So I guess I could talk about is kind of when I got into Haas. I was so intimidated by my peers. Like, I literally was like, oh my gosh, I picked the wrong major. I don't know how I got in here. I don't know why I'm here. Because there was students who were sitting in my classes next to me who were like, yeah, like, I'm an intern at Google and I have my own startup and I'm doing all of these things. And they would ask me, what did you do this summer? And I was like, I worked softball camps, you know, and stuff like that. And so I think that was something to definitely get over in terms of, like, in conversations, is just, like, trying to get to know them in different ways other than, like, the superficial, like, how are you doing in this class, like, blah, 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 you know? And I think in terms of connections and going forward, I think I just loved joining things that brought out the people who were going to be open to those conversations. For example, I've taken a lot of different classes in Haas through with Court Worthington, who I definitely recommend. I took his improvisational leadership class, and I'm now in his leadership and personal development class. And I really feel like that's where I've found, like, the cool people who are going to be willing to do that and practice those conversations with you. And I think I'm totally off base with where your question was at.
No, that's so good. That's so
okay.
good with how connections work and things like that.
And I think just how connections work is just like putting yourselves in situations where you know you're going to like the people.
Okay.
Like if you believe in environmental purposes, you're wearing an Earth Day shirt, and you decide to join a environmental club, like you're gonna find people that are like you. Like you're gonna find people, even though they may not have had the same background, they may not be an athlete, you're gonna find common interests there. And I think that's the coolest thing is with people, is finding that common interest and kind of just like basing your relationship off that and then seeing where it goes. So
what do you think, or how has your experience been meeting people that don't think like you?
Yeah, so that is definitely a tough situation because I'm definitely a control freak a little bit. And I like being able to control my surroundings and how I interact with people. But I think sports actually really set me up for that, and playing on a team, because you have to be adaptable all the time. Like you're not going to be the team captain, you're not going to be the All-American, you're not going to be the worst player on the team, you're not going to be the role player in every situation that you are in. But I think understanding your role when you get into that conversation with, say, someone who doesn't have the same beliefs or backgrounds as you, and understanding like, okay, like it's not my job to judge them or expect something from them that they can't give me. Like I'm going to get what I need from you and support you in the ways that like that you need from me. But aside from that, maybe we don't have the same beliefs, but we will always have the same goal of whatever that is. So. And
that's what matters. Mm-hmm. That's something I struggled with a lot. I am now I'm going to be declaring as a political science major. Mm-hmm. I fell in love with politics and current events January 2020. I just loved it, and I've always loved it, but I didn't know the details and things like that. So definitely, I mean, if some of my friends are listening to this right now, they know who they are. But it was thanks to that we like didn't talk too much for certain times, because if we did, we tend to disagree and debate on soccer. That's like our main topic. We have a group chat. They know who they are. And we debate on soccer every single day. And we have different opinions in absolutely everything. But then this came up and it was even worse. So it was definitely a learning experience for me, and having to be able to still have those conversations and learn and go through that process. So that's definitely something that's very cool. And I'd like to point out, I forgot to mention, Haas is Berkeley's business school. It's a big deal because it's one of the best 10.
It's not.
Yes, it is. It's one of the best business schools there is, basically. And that's why there's interns everywhere. I remember when I got LinkedIn for the first time, all these Berkeley posts, and it's like, they're at Netflix, they're at Amazon.
It's so intimidating.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, and it's just like, I just feel like everybody, when you get to that point, is just like, oh my gosh, like my entire life I was told that being a student athlete would prepare me to be an employee. Like, you know, like your coaches will say to you, but we're running these gassers today, it's going to make you a better employee because you'll know how to work hard. But then this situation came up where I was like, maybe I'm not going to be prepared for this, you know, because it just felt like there were so many other people that were so much further ahead, you know, just crazy.
In a way, something coaches will also say is hard work always beats talent. Did you find that to be the case, or have you found that to be the case within even such a like top school?
I think in terms of hard work, I think it's just like proving your worth.
Okay.
As unfortunate as that is sometimes, is like getting that validation from others when you don't need it. And understanding, like, no, I'm good. Like, I'll be fine. Like, my grades show it. Like, maybe that this class isn't my cup of tea and I'm just going to have to struggle through it. But I have to believe that there are other people out there who are feeling what I'm feeling. And the people that are kind of, like, ahead or whatever, like, who cares? You know? Like, so what? I'm going to be fine. Like, I'm going to go on and do what I want to do. And also, I did not know you were going to do political science.
I'm declaring political science, and I'm applying to Haas in the fall.
Really?
Yeah, so since you need 2 years for Haas,
right,
I decided to push back. And I'm going to be working on those classes starting this summer school, and then fall, and even in the spring.
Nice.
To get ahead, but hopefully officially in the spring. So we'll see how that goes, but definitely trying to double major in that. But yeah, it makes complete sense. Like, one of the things I've had to learn that you were saying, one of the things I repeat the most is focus on what you can control and ignore the rest. And it's mostly on, like, just focus on yourself.
Right.
You have no reason to focus on anybody else, but I understand how it's intimidating to... I mean, I have friends there, too, so they'll say, I'm interning at Facebook. I'm and all over, everything, and it's tough, but it works out. To keep adding to your resume, one of the final things I want to talk about, but I definitely want to dive in deep into this, is Golden Girls. So would you like to explain what Golden Girls is, how that started, and how you're involved?
Yeah, for sure. So Golden Girls is pretty much like a female empowerment friendship, just getting together and just being good people towards each other and just showing the community that there is here at Cal within the female student athlete just population. And I think Golden Girls, so we started it in August of 2018. I was actually abroad in the Dominican Republic on a service trip, and I didn't actually have access to my phone.
Okay.
And so I basically came back in the middle of July that year to basically like 600 text messages from my friend, my friend and teammate Jordan Vines, who started Golden Girls initially, about her having this idea and kind of like what she wanted to see with it. And I just remember I loved that process of talking to her about it and like planning out our meetings and what issues we felt we saw as student athletes, especially females, who it was just like we saw an issue, especially between the two geographical locations between the Simpson Center, which is up on Piedmont, and Haas, which is down on Bancroft. And like there was athletes that I had never met, you know, and like even me and you, like we run into each other at least at the stadium, where say for a cross country runner, I would never have met her because we simply wouldn't know. So I think that's been the coolest part about Golden Girls, is again building those connections across sports, across honestly departments. We interact with a lot of administrative people, I guess, if that makes sense, who have been super helpful to our development. And I think that's Golden Girls has just been one of those amazing things that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of in this past year being president. I think I had really big shoes to fill for Jordan, and I hope that I did a good job, but I'm really excited to see what the future of Golden Girls is going to look like. I think most of our leadership team is actually in your class, who are rising juniors now, and I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with the group. Yeah.
No, I definitely like the idea of that group. I've always enjoyed supporting as many like female sports as I can. Like I grew up watching the United States women's soccer team. In the first Olympics was 2008. That's when I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I definitely like am not as exposed to other sports because, well, soccer was easy for me. It's the combination between not watching too many other sports as well as not having all sports available, at least on the female side. So it's definitely nice to see this happening, that you're growing it. I 100% support it, and I'd love to like get to know like what goes on in the sense of your projects or how that works. But I know there is a leadership aspect to things. You talked about some of the struggles that females go through here at Cal. So how did you manage to help others while you were still trying to figure out your own process and struggles and challenges?
Yeah, of course. So I think just being, I'm kind of going to go through it with like what we saw the problem was and how we fixed it.
Got it.
If that's helpful. So one of the biggest things we saw was the safety of being a female in Berkeley. And so that's obviously it's not safe for us to be out past a certain time of the night, being here and all those types of things, the safety that comes with that. And so I think that was one of the biggest issues we saw, is that was honestly really hard in creating our meeting time, because we knew that was something that really affected all of us, any female anywhere in the world, you know? And so one of the meetings that we did that I think everybody loved was actually our self-defense night. It was so fun. We had a speech or a guest speaker come in and talk about it, and that was just amazing. And it was exciting to know that there were people out there for that. And so that was one of our fun meetings. And it was just great. And then any other meeting we've obviously had to adapt since COVID hit into Zoom. And like what we really enjoy doing is just like kind of highlighting those conversations and those connections that I was fortunate enough to build, and having there be a space for that for other people. And so like we do breakout rooms with fun or icebreaker questions, not the basic ones, and stuff like that. And so I think that's been like the really cool opportunity there. It's just like basically the biggest issue is like that I had as a freshman was I didn't know there were people out there that felt the way that I did, who didn't necessarily like their experience as a student athlete here, who felt like they had to transfer in order to find something to be happy about. And so I think that was like another big issue we saw is just being a female athlete. Like a lot of times you're just expected to just kind of like go through it day in day and like it's just you and suffer in silence and, you know, like whatever. And I think bringing light to those things through those kind of fun conversations really helped me, and I feel like have definitely helped others kind of just like, it's nice being able to talk to someone that's not on your team.
Yeah.
Pretty much, you know? So.
I love to hear that because two of the things that I think would be the solution for many, if not most, if not all of the world's problems are education and communication. And the conversations that are necessary to have in a chill environment and just casual are happening there. So I applaud that. I really love to hear that that's how it works and that's how it happens. Obviously, I've never experienced it. I never will. And that's okay. But I love to know that it's helping others as well as yourself, because it is important to know that many people are struggling. I've had countless conversations with some teammates, some that aren't my teammates, but that go to Cal, and they're saying, you know what, I think I have to transfer. And it's about trusting the process, and this is one of the main purposes of this podcast. Like I said in the speech the other night, like the way I want to leave my dent in the universe is by celebrating those that are leaving their dent, as I am right now, and inspiring others to do the same. So I hope that this serves as a reminder to many people that it is a long process, it does take time, and that they're not alone. Like, people go through this sort of thing, whether you're a collegiate athlete, whether you go to Berkeley, whether you're just a student, anywhere in the world, whatever struggles you're facing, you're not alone. And I think that's the most important thing to remember throughout this whole process. So as we begin to close out, you've done all these things. A softball player, a leader, a mentor, a business student, countless things. What's next when you have all of these things lined up for you?
That's actually one of my biggest fears, is not knowing what's next, in that kind of what's next hole that comes when you accomplish something. But I'm really excited by the opportunity. I'll be going to Georgetown University in the fall to pursue my master's in public policy, because I think something that my end goal, so this video will kind of keep me accountable to whether I actually do it, is I really want to work in healthcare policy, because I think it ties up everything that I've done in my time here at Cal, and so I'm really excited about that opportunity. And yeah, that's kind of what's next for me. And I had an interview today at a winery, so we'll see if I get it. But yeah, that's kind of next 5 years, I guess.
Yeah. And wait, how long is that master's degree?
I will graduate in May of 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you playing softball over there?
Yes, I will be playing softball at least for one more year. I do have a second year since I redshirted my sophomore year, but I don't know if my body can handle it. So we'll see. We'll
see from there. I'm very excited for you to go to Georgetown. Obviously, amazing school. Very nice location. I have a friend that goes there, so he's told me great things about it, and I really hope you enjoy it. You really deserve the world, so I'm excited for you. I hope you do very well. I hope you continue to leave your dent in the universe over there, as I know you will. And yeah, any last words?
Thank you for having me. This was super cool, and I'm so excited to see what you're going to do in your next 2 years. And always just remember, I'm just a phone call away.
Yeah.
So this connection is always there.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Open. I really, really appreciate it. When I started this podcast, I had a list, and you were like one of the first names that came up. So gosh. I'm glad we got to do this. Thanks for being flexible with the times. I know schedule's crazy right now. Awesome. Hope everything goes well. Thank you so much. That's it for today's episode. Thank you guys for joining in. I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Make sure to subscribe to my podcast and follow me on my personal social media accounts for more, all at Fer Andraez. All links are in the description. If this episode inspired you in any way, please help me out by sharing it with a friend to help them leave their dent in the universe as well. That's it for today. I'll see you all next time.